What kind of legal entity should I set up for my company? Well, there's a couple different legal frameworks. Don't worry, this won't be boring. I'll go through it quickly, but it's important. There's proprietorship when you start a company on your own, and it's very cheap to set it up. There's no politics, it's just you. And also, there are some negatives though. You're personally liable. If you get sued, they can come after your house. And so I don't want you to set up companies as a proprietorship unless it's such an early stage company that you actually don't really have much revenue, you don't really have a product yet. There's another term you've probably heard called GP or general partnership, and this is kind of like a sole proprietorship, but it involves a number of people. So two or more people is cheap to set up, but you do have personal liabilities as well, and it's tough to sell a GP. Then there's something called an LP or limited partnership. And these are people that invest in the company, but they can't tell the company managers what to do. So they're a partner, but their authority is limited, hence they're limited partners. And they're passive investors. They're passive investors. They don't really have any rights, though. But from a legal perspective, they generally can't get in trouble if things go wrong. And then there's corporations, and this is probably the best one legal structure to use if you're a large company and you're about to go public. And there's amazing corporate governance stipulations if you're a big corporation. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll have a board of directors. You have to. And this board of directors has the ability to protect the shareholder, protect the investor. And so they have a fiduciary duty or fiscal responsibility to protect investors. The negatives are it gets bureaucratic because corporations are big. You've got board meetings, and it's expensive and tedious dealing with shareholders. And I'll cover that later as well. But if you're a big company, you have to be an LLC. And so in that chart, in the life cycle, in the last 3 rectangle boxes, right, you'll set up as a corporation. But in the first 2 boxes, you'll set up as a proprietorship initially or an LLC, which I'll explain in a second. I want to talk quickly about S corporations. You've heard of the term. Not many people use it. It basically means when you have a lot of, have less than 100 individual investors, and there's no corporate there's no corporate tax, only at a personal level. Forget that stuff though, because not many people set those up. Then there's something called, and this is important, a limited liability company, an LLC, where the liability is limited. And this is the one I want you to use early on, okay? After you're generating revenue and you're a little bit big, but not too big. It's cheaper to set up than a corporation. And what I love about it is that for some unknown reason, if you get sued, your family and your family's assets are protected because the company, the LLC, can get sued, and usually not you. So I won't spend too much time on this, but an LLC is the right way to go. And usually it costs $800 or less per year to set up an LLC. And in the book version of the course, I talk about in great detail how to set up a company, why we use Delaware instead of other states in America. And it's mainly because Delaware has so many great lawyers and business executives that have been setting up companies for decades that it's just cheaper to do it there. And there's better tax laws there too. Now, let's talk about taxes. So taxes for single people works as follows. Between making $0 and $9,225, you pay 10%. And if you make more than that, so between $9,226 up to $37,450 on that tranche or that amount, you'll pay 15%. Okay, so between 0 and 9,225, you pay 10%. And then between 9,226 to 37,450, you pay 15%. And then between 37,451 all the way up to $90,750, you'll pay 25% on that tranche. So it's a step function. That's how it works. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You've got the charts in front of you. And then taxes for married couples, if they're filing jointly, is a little bit different per that schedule. And you can pause the presentation to look at that if you want. And then if the couple is filing separately, this is the tax schedule. And then taxes for companies is as follows, right? And it's a little bit different than taxes for individual people. In fact, companies get taxed twice if they issue a dividend. They get taxed on the money they made, and then the investor also gets taxed on the dividend. And so if a corporation makes $100,000, what is the tax rate? So between $0 and $50,000 per the schedule you see on the screen there, you're going to pay 15% tax, or $7,500. And then between 50 grand and 75 grand, you're going to pay 25%, which is $6,000, or $6.25 thousand. And then between $75,000 and 100 grand, you're going to pay 34% tax, or $8,000, $8.5 thousand. So your total tax is $22,500. So if you take $22,500 divided by $100,000, your corporate tax rate in this hypothetical example is 22.25%. Please pause the slide to digest this if you'd like. Okay, so we talked about dividends being taxed twice. So again, when a company has net income, they pay tax on that. And then if they give part of that money away to investors as dividends, then the investor gets taxed twice, once on the company and once on the dividend. Double taxation, WTF, which stands for why the face? Okay, let's move on to how do I protect my IP? IP stands for intellectual property. How do I protect it so that other people can't use my brand? Well, there's a number of different ways, and you'll see these little signs there, and the screen might be too small for you to see, but one is TM, or trademark, and the other one is R with a circle around it. You see this all the time. You probably ask yourself, what does this mean? I'll show you. Okay, so there's three ways to protect your intellectual property or your company from being copied. The first way is to file patents or copyrights or trademarks. I'll give you an example in a second. The second way is to have non-disclosure agreements. So people that see your trade secrets or whatever that you have to share with them, maybe partners, they have to sign an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement, right? And get your lawyer to set that up. And then the last one is employee contracts, so that employees can't come to your company, steal all your intellectual property, and leave to a competitor. Let's talk about patents first, okay? So a product is, generally speaking, protected once it's been filed. And to file a patent to protect your product from being copied, it usually costs between $1,000 for a rudimentary or basic product, all the way up to $100,000 if it's a very complicated biotechnology or pharmaceutical product. And so it usually takes less than 1 year in the United States to set it up. And recently, the U.S. government opened a patent office here in Silicon Valley. It's strange they haven't had it for the past couple decades here, but they do now. And so usually it takes less than 1 year, and often you'll see on infomercials or magazines, you've got patent pending. And that basically it means that the patent is going to be issued within a year, and usually it's good enough. So once it's been filed, your patent, it's protected. Okay, patent pending is almost as good as patents. Trademark. Trademark is TM, and you'll see that a lot on products. And it basically means a name, a brand, or a slogan is trademarked, so nobody can copy it. And so if it's registered at the state level, and you have to go to a patent office to do that, just search online for patent office, easy to do. And you have it set up in a couple of states, protected. It makes sense. It's cost effective to have a trademark, TM. Protect your brand or your company in 3 states. If you don't use it for a couple of years, you'll lose it. So trademark or TM is a way to protect your brand, your product, your company in 3 states or just a handful of states. If you register a trademark at the federal level, meaning in all states you want to be protected, then it's called a registered trademark, or an R with a circle around it. Okay, and big companies usually use R, or the registered trademark, right? Small companies that only do business in a couple of states will have TM, or just trademark. Okay, so what is copyright? I see a C with a circle around a lot, but I don't know what that means. Well, it's very hard to patent software or media. And so the solution is copyright. So software or media or music, whatever, it's virtual. You can't see, feel, or touch it. So you can copyright it, right? And so copyright protection is usually for 50 years after you die. Bruno Mars, who's alive, he's a good singer. His stuff is copyrighted because he's alive. But amazing classical music composers like Beethoven, Bach, and Chopin are not. I mispronounced those on purpose. Those people are not copyrighted, and that's why when you go to a music store online or in a real physical music store, if they still exist, you can buy classical music for next to nothing, right? Because nobody owns the rights anymore. Okay, so let's talk about a quick recap of IP or intellectual property. So TM is trademark, means it's registered at the state level in a couple states. If you want to register in all states, it's a bit more expensive. You set up a registered trademark, which is R with a circle around it. C with a circle around it means you're registering or protecting media or software. Patent means the registration of a thing or a process or the way to do something. Okay, so here's a couple of those examples. So if you use Internet Explorer, one of the internet browsers, which I don't, but if you do, if you go to the Help About section, you'll see registered trademark on the brand Internet Explorer. It's circled there at the top, and then the software itself is copyrighted by Microsoft. You see the C with a circle around it. And I had a friend that worked at Microsoft on Internet Explorer actually. Back in 1995, there was a bunch of lawyers at Microsoft standing behind him, and every time he wrote a couple of cool lines of code, they would say, "Patent this, patent this." So the software industry is very litigious. You have a lot of lawyers in place to protect IP. Okay, Kindle. You'll see if you go to the Help About section, you'll see copyright and trademark examples used as well. Okay, let's talk about trade secrets very quickly. So trade secrets are secrets that are not filed for a reason because it's a secret. And so Coca-Cola has a trade secret in their vault, and they also get their employees to sign contracts. That's how they protect their IP. But for the most part, nobody watching this will use trade secrets. I want you to all please read your employment contracts closely before signing them. The person you work for, if you work for somebody else or with someone else, they love you, obviously, which is why they hired you. But their lawyer doesn't have your best interests or your family's best interests. Their lawyer is trying to protect them and the company. And that's cool. It's okay. It's just the way it works. It's not a reflection of the person trying to hire you not trusting you. They usually don't even read the contracts they give you. The lawyer does. But you got to read it yourself. And you got to hire your own lawyer on the side. It might cost a couple $100 before signing that employment contract, if you can. Protect your family and yourself. So lawyers are a necessary evil. We need them in business. And I think I've covered just about everything we're going to cover in this course except Chapter 11 when it comes to legal stuff. And we'll cover Chapter 11 when there's blood in the water, or the last section of this course. Okay, so again, this course is bringing Silicon Valley and Wall Street into this class. And so I'll be using a lot of examples from Silicon Valley and Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, and I worked in Silicon Valley for a decade here as well. But you'll enjoy it. So let's talk about unicorns. It's a very hot topic right now in venture capital. And so unicorns are companies that have $1 billion plus valuation. And the probability of investing in a unicorn is less than 0.07%. It's very rare, just like unicorns. And so about 40 unicorns have been born since 2003. That's about 4 every single year. And here's the $1 billion unicorn club. You can see that Facebook is off the charts on this scale. It's much, much bigger. Right? We couldn't fit it in. And again, a handful of unicorns are created every single year. And here's the number of unicorns created every year versus the Dow Jones. And it's interesting because there was one very successful company in 2001 that got a lot of funding, and one very successful company in 2008 that got a lot of funding. In 2001, it was Google. In 2008, it was Facebook. And those were 2 horrific recessionary environments. As a result, the venture capitalists and the investors only wanted to really, for the most part, invest in companies that were a sure thing. And so, Google and Facebook are incredibly successful companies, but timing had a lot to do with when they were in their rapid growth private stage. And so Timing has a lot to do with business as well. And in the last section of this course, we're going to talk about that in great detail. That's part of the leftover section. Okay, so the odds of venture capital-backed investment becoming a unicorn is 1 in 1,538. You got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. And so the top venture capital firms usually have about 1% of their investments in unicorns. And the best venture capital firm in the world is called Sequoia, and they have 5% of their investments as unicorns. So why is technology investment relevant today? Well, let's look at some very cool statistics here. So one iPhone today costs about $700 over the life of a 2-year contract. That iPhone has the same processing power of 375 IBM computers from 1975 costing $33 million. It's amazing. And there's over 1 billion smartphones in the world today. Think of the opportunities. It's mind-boggling, really. In fact, one iPhone has more computing power than all the computers in the world put together to put the first person on the moon in 1969. Incredible. Just incredible. And so it's much cheaper to set up a company today versus in the late 90s when I started my first tech company. Computing and storage prices were very expensive back then. I had to deal with recruiting in this archaic fashion of hiring a headhunter. I had to have my own T1 or high-speed line coming to my house, which was expensive. I had to, God forbid, pay for my own software from an office productivity perspective. Today, most of that stuff is free. And I'll talk about Amazon Web Services in great detail much later in the course. I won't bog you down in the boring technical details of that right now. But that's why you've seen explosive growth in the number of technology startups getting funding, because it is much, much cheaper today to start a company than it was during the last internet boom, which ended in 2000 or 2001. Okay, here's some other cool stats. Over 10 billion pictures or 10 billion hours of YouTube video is viewed every month. Over 500 million photos are uploaded to Facebook every single day. I'm sure Instagram is just as much, if not more now. And currently there's 2.5 people on the internet with access and 4.5 billion people that don't have internet access yet. And so there's a lot of great growth opportunities when it comes to starting technology companies currently. Remember, investment trends last much longer than you think. The first investment trend on the internet sector started in 1995 when the first relevant browser company went public, which was Netscape, right? And here we are more than 20 years later, and this investment theme still has legs. Investment themes last much longer than you think. Okay, let's talk about a new topic. We're going to talk about networking, okay? So again, relationships are more important than product knowledge. We've talked about that at length. Now, if I told you this, and I tell all my students this in the first class, that if you did 20 informational meetings, then you would have the job of your dream, would you do it? And every one of my students puts their hands up and says, yes, I'll do 20 informational meetings this semester, and I'll get the job of my dreams. And only 1 or 2 people ever do it, and those are the ones that get the best jobs. And those aren't the ones with the best grades either. Those are just the ones that network the most. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to network.